Hello, I'm Beowulf. What do you do when everyone in the room disagrees with you? What do you do when you're the only one who holds a conservative opinion in a class full of liberals? What do you do when said liberal classroom starts telling lies or sort of misshapes it? Doesn't really tell a lie about it, but just let's leave this out, let's leave that out. We'll bring this up to the forward. Let's make it look like this is the case when it really actually wasn't. Yesterday, oh god, yesterday I was in the political science class and my professor showed me a movie. The movie was White Like Me. And while the movie wasn't completely and utterly dog shit, it wasn't that bad, but it was really wrong in a lot of places and sometimes right. One of the biggest problems I had about the movie, at least this is my opinion, was that it kept on defining whiteness in history, throughout history, as the same bloody thing, which it isn't. It's talking about American history as this constant thing that just has never changed and now it's like this and it was like this then all the way back since Christopher Columbus. The definition of whiteness has been what it is now, and that's just bullshit. I mean, maybe that's just something I got from it, but that's what it sounded like. And it's just not true. Even today, I was talking to someone online, and they had a problem with me calling people from Brazil, Mexico, and all those other places down below America Hispanic, which is what I've grown up calling those people. They call themselves that. I live in Southern California, and most of the people I've known who are that race call themselves Hispanic or Latino, which is what the person I was talking to with said what they are. Like they're Latino, they're not Hispanic. They said Hispanics were from Spain, and well, I'm not too sure about that history. Could be true. I'm not sure. That's not my area of expertise. But it's just a little example of how whiteness has not meant the exact same thing. What got really interesting was when I brought up the Irish. And I even brought up a quote from the time saying that the Irish are no better than the Negro. And there's just example after example of how those two people are exactly the same thing in the eyes of this guy. He was a nativist. A native was a person in American history who saw the people born in America, raised in America, and been in America for generations as the superior people. If you want a good example of it, watch Gangs of New York. Bill the Butcher, he's a nativist. And that movie shows a little bit of the discrimination the Irish faced. That movie's not historically accurate, but it's a good representation of what history was kind of like back then for the Irish. But the funny thing is, when I brought up the Irish, my professor instantly, without me even mentioning slavery whatsoever, before I finished my sentence, she was like, "The Irish want slaves. The Irish want slaves." I was like, "Okay, good for them." It's just almost pathetic that I was just making the comparison between the two and how the Irish were considered just as bad as the black people back then. And automatically it goes to they want slaves. And I can't even find that funny. Like, what is a slave? Let me tell you a few characteristics of being a slave. Bought and sold. No control of your life. Can be separated from children. Whipped and beaten in public. Raped. And killed at the master's leisure. All characteristics of slavery. Black slavery. You know what else that was a characteristic of? Indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is just a fancy name for temporary slavery. And yeah, some of the Irish chose that, but not all of them. A lot of them were like, okay, you're a criminal. You're an indentured servant now. Or they just sent the problematic people off to be indentured servants. There was too many Irish, too many poor people in England. The population grew huge, so the British were just pushing them out of Britain as fast as possible. And the funny thing is, they got to be free after the 7 years. No, they didn't. I mean, some did, but if you look in history, only a small percentage of the indentured servants got land worth the time. Like, a large percentage. I don't want to give it a huge, like a actual percentage, because that may not be right, but a good percentage of the Irish stayed on as servants to the master because they had nothing else they can do. The wages they were given were not sufficient enough to become free citizens. They were forced to continue their service towards their masters. So how is that not slavery? Just, here's a little bit of money. Oh, you can't do anything with that? Well, you gotta keep on doing what you're doing. You're free now, right? Good for you. And the funny thing also is, like, I've heard so many black people compare the prison system of modern day America as slavery. Not just a small proportion of it. I've seen Facebook posts and articles with hundreds of thousands of likes and shares and positive comments, and even documentaries about how the prison system is slavery. So you're telling me that the prison system, that's slavery. Indentured servitude, that's not fucking slavery? No, that's not slavery. Modern day prison system, that's slavery. The only fucking correlation between prison and slavery is that a good portion of the people within them are black. And yeah, you could say that's a societal problem. But you can't say prison's fucking slavery, slavery's fucking slavery, but indentured servitude, that's not slavery. Come on, folks. They just could be beaten and sold at will of their masters. Come on, they're white. That doesn't count. You know that doesn't count, right? Only black people can be slaves. And now, yes, black people in America were given a tough fucking stick. They were given the blunt end at every point. It was true. And we should try and change that as much as possible. We've gotten a lot better at it. And racial tension is still here. But we need to properly address race history, race relations. You have to tell the fucking truth. You can't just be like, well, slavery only counts as slavery if it was beyond the Civil War. If it's before the Civil War, that's not slavery. Get that out of here. Another thing I wanted to compare was the coal mines. Now, I don't know how many of you know the history of the coal mines, but just look up the song 16 Tons, and that's an accurate representation of what life was like in the coal mines. And you're telling me that's not slavery in one form or another? Where you had to work for the company for the rest of your life, and your children took on that debt for the rest of their life until that debt was paid. And the funny thing about that debt was that you could never pay it off. It just got larger and larger and larger because the company, while they paid you, they never paid you enough. And guess who owned all the things that you had to buy? The food, the housing, the clothing, the blankets, anything that a person would need to live. Guess who owned it? The company. The coal company. And can you guess what the prices were like? Were they cheap? Were they affordable? No, they were not. They were expensive, and you could not afford them without going into debt. Is that not a form of slavery? Come on. You can't be just only type one thing is slavery, even though that one thing has so many different fractions off of it. And yeah, you can make the comparison that, well, they're not technically slaves because they chose it. But they really didn't. look into the coal miners' history. It wasn't like, let's go walk for the coal mines, let's go walk for the coal mines. I love my job, I love the job. Let's stick 15 people into a space that can only fit 5. And 3 will die, but I enjoy my work. I'm treated like shit on a constant, regular basis. I choose this job. No, the poor in America were not given a choice between here's a good job, here's a shitty job. Your choice. No, that's not how it worked. You had the shitty job, you were born into the shitty job, you lived with the shitty job, and some people got out of the shitty job. That's true. But so did some blacks get out of slavery. So these little nuanced things that they want to bring up as saying this counts as slavery, this doesn't, this does, this doesn't, this does, this doesn't, is just complete and utter horseshit. That being said, we do need to work on race relations. They're terrible right now. We're getting riots and police and this and that. Black Lives Matter, Antifa, alt-right, alt-left, and everything's just going out of complete control. That's not how this country becomes stronger. We need to unite, not do this stupid divide and conquer bullshit. The best way for us to remain wage slaves as we are now, as we've always been, is work together. The best way isn't to make the black people the enemies, to make the white people the enemies, to make the Mexicans the enemies, to make the Muslims the enemies, to make the Christians the enemies. Is to work together as one. The only problem with that is no one fucking wants to do it. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.